The story of Abu Hassan, or the sleeper awakened. There once lived in Baghdad a very rich merchant. He had only one son, whose name was Abu Hassan. He raised him very strictly. The merchant died when his son was 30 years old and left him all his money. Abu Hassan, who had never been able to spend any money, now wanted to really enjoy himself. But first he took half his money and bought some houses and some land. He promised not to spend any of this. He took the other half, however, to have a good time with. Soon Abu Hassan had many friends. He often gave them rich presents, and there were many parties at his house. But after almost a year, he ran out of money. When he stopped giving parties and gifts, his friends stopped coming to see him. Soon, Abu Hassan realized that they were not really his friends. He was thankful that he had saved half of his father's money. From then on, he decided he would never give anything to anyone from Baghdad. Instead, he would invite travelers who arrived in the city to have dinner with him. Then in the morning, he would say goodbye to them and never see them again. This is exactly what Abu Hassan started to do. Every morning, he went to the bridge into town. There he waited for some strangers to invite to dinner. He always first explained his promise never to see anyone twice. At this house, he served a good but simple meal and talked with his guests about many things. He was so interesting that the conversations often continued until early in the morning. One day, when Abu Hassan was waiting at the bridge, the king of the city, Harun al-Rashid, came by dressed as a merchant. Abu Hassan thought he was a stranger to the town and went up to him. Telling him about his promise, he invited the king to have dinner at his house. The king thought Abu Hassan's promise was very interesting and wanted to know why he had made it, so he accepted the invitation. That night, they talked and talked. Each of them enjoyed each other's company very much. Late in the evening, after they had been drinking wine for several hours, the king asked Abu Hassan the reason for his promise. At first, he wouldn't say, but in the end, he told the king all about the friends who were not really friends. The king thought it was a very good story. "You are lucky," said the king to Abu Hassan, "to have learned this lesson so early in life." The king liked Abu Hassan more and more. Before he went to bed, he asked him if there was anything that he could do for him. "I am only a merchant," lied the king, "but maybe I or a friend can help you." Abu Hassan thanked him, but he said there was really nothing that he needed. He had no problems. The only thing that bothered him was Imam Abdul, the head of the local mosque, who was always giving everybody trouble. "If I were king," said Abu Hassan, "I would take that man and beat him 400 times. When the king heard this, he thought of a plan. Taking a glass, he put some powder into the wine. Then he asked Abu Hassan to drink one last time with him. Soon after Abu Hassan drank it, he fell into a very deep sleep. The king then went quickly and got some of his men to take Abu Hassan to his palace. They put him in the king's bed. "Tomorrow," said the king, "you must pretend that this man is me. Do anything and everything that he asks you do, no matter what it is." Everyone understood that the king was playing a joke and wanted to help. The king then went to bed, wondering how Abu Hassan would use this power the next day. In the morning, everyone was waiting when Abu Hassan woke up. He was very surprised. There were rich silks on the bed, and the ceiling of the room was made of gold. The pillow under his head had the king's name on it, and there were jewels everywhere. Abu Hassan thought he was dreaming. He turned over and closed his eye again. "Your Majesty, King of Kings," said one of the servants, "it is time to wake up. The sun is already up." At the sound of this voice, Abu Hassan sat up and rubbed his eyes. The sun came in through the window. He thought he was awake, but he wasn't sure. Another of the king's men then came and told Abu Hassan that he should go to meet his people. They were waiting to talk to him. "Who are you talking to?" asked Abu Hassan. "I don't know you." "My king," answered the man. "You're only trying to test me. You are the king of all the world, from east to west. I have not forgotten you after all these years. I hope you have not forgotten me. Or did I do something wrong? If I did, please forgive me." Abu Hassan started laughing. The king, who was watching from behind the curtain, was enjoying everything very much. He almost laughed aloud. Abu Hassan then called a woman who was standing nearby. "Come here," he said, holding out his hand. "Bite the end of my finger. I want to know if I am awake or asleep." The woman took Abu Hassan's hand and, putting the finger in her mouth, bit it very hard. "Ah!" yelled Abu Hassan, pulling his hand away. "I'm awake, but what a strange world it is." He still couldn't quite believe what was happening, however. Speaking to the woman again, he said, "Tell me the truth. Am I really the king?" "Of course you are," she said. "Why are you asking such strange questions?" "You are a liar," answered Abu Hassan. "I know who I am." But he wasn't really sure. So he got dressed in the king's clothes and went to the king's office. The real king followed him and hid again where he could see all that happened. He was really enjoying watching Abu Hassan. Slowly, Abu Hassan began to believe that he really was the king. He asked what business there was to do. Everything was explained to him. Abu Hassan listened very carefully. Then, suddenly, he slapped his own face to check once again to see if he was really awake. Finally convinced, he told the Grand Vizier to get Imam Abdul and beat him 400 times. The king, who was still watching, was very happy to see Abu Hassan do what he said he would do. He looked forward to seeing what else would happen. Soon, a servant returned to say that the man had been bitten. Abu Hassan then told the Grand Vizier to put 1,000 pieces of gold in a purse. "Take it," he continued, "and give it to the mother of Abu Hassan." The Grand Vizier laughed immediately. Giving Abu Hassan's mother the gold, he explained that it was a present from the king. Soon it was time for dinner. 6 beautiful women came to serve him. Later, 6 different women came, even more beautiful than the first 6. After dinner, these 6 left too, and 6 more came. They were all very, very beautiful. They brought wine and introduced themselves: Morning Star, Coral Lips, Moonface, Sunshine, Ice Joy, and Pearl. Abu Hassan talked to them all night, with the king listening and enjoying everything he heard. Finally, very late that night, Pearl brought Abu Hassan one more glass of wine. In it was the same powder the king had given Abu Hassan the night before. Saying he had had a wonderful evening, he took it and drank to each of the women. Within a few minutes, he fell once again into a very deep sleep. The next morning, Abu Hassan slept very late. During the night, he had been dressed in his own clothes and taken home. When he woke up, he opened his eyes and cried, "Morning Star, Moonface, Pearl, where are you?" His mother heard him. "What's wrong, son?" she asked. Looking at his mother, Abu Hassan asked, "Don't you know who I am? I am the king." Abu Hassan's mother thought that he had gone crazy. Trying to change the subject, she started to tell him how Imam Abdul had been bitten the day before. When he heard this, Abu Hassan knew that he was the king. But his mother wouldn't believe him. "Don't you know me, son? I am your mother. Why do you say that you, Abu Hassan, are the king when the king was so good to us yesterday? Look, he gave us 1,000 pieces of gold." This was too much for Abu Hassan. "I am the king!" he shouted. "I am the king!" Soon the neighbors heard him and thought that he had gone crazy too. They held his arms and carried him to a place for crazy people. After several weeks there, Abu Hassan decided that he had dreamed everything. When his mother came to see him one day, he asked her to forgive him. She was very happy to hear him talking like this and took him home. A few days later, Abu Hassan decided to invite another stranger to his house for dinner. The king, who knew everything that had happened to Abu Hassan, went to the bridge again, dressed as a merchant. When Abu Hassan saw him, he turned away. But the king went up to him and asked him over and over again to invite him to dinner once more. Abu Hassan thought that the merchant was bad luck. He had had the dream the last time he saw the merchant. Besides, he had promised never to see the same person twice. But the king wouldn't listen to him. In the end, Abu Hassan took the king to his house once again. After dinner, they began drinking together again. Like the time before, they enjoyed the conversation very much. Indeed, the king felt that there was no one in the world he liked more than Abu Hassan, except for his wife, of course. A little later, the king put some more powder in Abu Hassan's drink. He fell asleep again and was once more taken back to the king's palace. When he woke up in the morning, he opened one eye and said, "Oh no!" He was sure that he was dreaming. "Come here," he said to one woman. "Bite my ear." She did as she was told. Abu Hassan screamed and then started laughing again. Just then, some dancers came into the room. Abu Hassan, feeling very good, got up and started dancing with them. The king enjoyed all of this so much that he started laughing. He was so loud that Abu Hassan heard him. "Who's this?" he asked, going to the curtain where the king was hiding. "It's you, the merchant." Then slowly he saw what had happened. "Ha ha ha!" he laughed. "I understand now." The king then explained that he often walked around the town as a merchant. "I want to hear what my people are thinking," he said. "That is how I met you. When you said what you would do if you were king, I wanted to watch. You are a very good man, and I want to pay you back for your troubles. Ask for anything, and I will give it to you." "Troubles, your majesty?" answered Abu Hassan. "Now that I know that it was you, I cannot remember any troubles. But since you have given me one wish, I wish that we could be friends." The king enjoyed this very much and told Abu Hassan to come visit him whenever he wanted. This he often did. Sometimes the queen would visit them as well. She and Abu Hassan soon became friends too. She noticed that Abu Hassan often looked at her favorite slave, whose name was Nuzhatul. She told the king about it. They decided that Abu Hassan and Nuzhatul should marry. Since they were both in love with each other, Abu Hassan and Nuzhatul were soon married. The king and queen gave them many rich presents. They were very happy together. For a year, they lived a very rich life. They had many parties and often invited the king and the queen. Eventually, however, they ran out of money. Fortunately, Abu Hassan had an idea. He thought of a joke he wanted to play on the king and his wife. "You and I will both die," he explained to Nuzhatul. "What?" she asked. I don't want to die. Wait a minute, said Abu Hassan. I don't mean that we will really die. I will lie down on the bed, cover me with a blanket as if I were dead. Then cry and go to the queen. When she hears that I am dead, she will give you money for my burial. When you get back, I'll get up and you'll lay down. I'll tell the king you died, and he'll give me money too. Nusatu liked the plan very much, so they started immediately. Covering Abu Hassan with the blanket, she started crying and pulling her hair. She went to the queen and told her that her dear Abu Hassan had died suddenly. Soon the queen and all the other slaves were crying too. The queen was very sad and promised Nusatu that she would always take care of her. Finally, just as Abu Hassan had said she would, she gave Nusatu a purse full of gold. When Nusatu returned, she laughed to see Abu Hassan still lying on the bed pretending to be dead. She told him what had happened and showed him the bag of gold. They both started laughing out loud. They were enjoying their joke very much. Then Nusatu lay down and Abu Hassan went to the king. Holding a handkerchief in front of his eyes, he told the king that Nusatu had died suddenly. The king was very sorry to hear this and gave Abu Hassan too a purse filled with gold. As soon as Abu Hassan left, the king went to the queen to tell her the bad news. Finding her crying already, he told her how sorry he was that Nusatu had died. "What? It is Abu Hassan who has died," said the queen. "Excuse me," said the king, "but you are wrong. Abu Hassan is alive and well." "Sir," she said angrily, "I am not wrong. You are. I will bet you my pleasure garden for your palace of paintings that it is Abu Hassan who is dead." The king, sure that he was right, accepted the bet. He called the Grand Vizier and immediately sent him to Abu Hassan's house to see who was right. Abu Hassan and Nusatu were ready, however. As soon as he saw the Grand Vizier coming, Abu Hassan told Nusatu to lie down again. When the Grand Vizier came in, Abu Hassan was sitting by his wife with the handkerchief to his eyes. The Grand Vizier saw that it really was Nusatu who was dead and went back to tell the king. As soon as the king heard this, he laughed. He liked winning bets with his wife. "You see, I was right." The queen, however, could not believe it and sent one of her servants to Abu Hassan's house too. Nusatu saw her coming and immediately told her husband to lay down. So, when the servant came in, she saw that Abu Hassan was dead and Nusatu alive. Soon, she left to tell the queen what she had seen. When the king and queen heard that report, they didn't know what to believe. They looked at each other and both got up at the same time to see for themselves. When Nusatu saw them coming, she cried, "Oh, what are we going to do now?" But Abu Hassan told her, "Don't worry, everything will be all right." They both lay down and pulled the blankets over their heads. The king and queen came in and saw them both lying there dead. "My God, how horrible!" cried the queen with tears in her eyes. "Nusatu must have died because she was so sad about Abu Hassan." "That's impossible," said the queen. "Nusatu died first." But the queen would not listen to this. "My slave told you not 5 minutes ago that Abu Hassan was dead and Nusatu was alive. You have lost your palace of paintings. Surely Abu Hassan died first." The king, however, was sure he was right. "I will give 1,000 pieces of gold," he said, "to whomever can tell me who died first." As soon as he said this, the king heard Abu Hassan's voice say, "Your Majesty, I died first. Give me the 1,000 pieces of gold." Then, trying not to smile, Abu Hassan and Nusatu jumped up and bowed very low in front of the king and the queen. The queen screamed, but she soon recovered and was very, very happy that they were still alive. Oh, you are terrible, Nusatul, said the queen. I thought you were dead. I was so unhappy. But I'm so happy now that you're not that I forgive you everything. The king, who was laughing very hard, wanted to know the reason for the joke. Abu Hassan explained how they had run out of money. We thought, continued Abu Hassan, our little joke might help us, and we hope that you would enjoy it. The king and queen began to laugh all over again, thinking about how they had been fooled. Then the king said to Abu Hassan, "My dear friend, come with me. I promised you 1,000 pieces of gold. It is easily worth it to see you alive again." The queen also wanted to give Nusatul the same amount to show her love for her. And in this way, Abu Hassan and Nusatul were able to live well and keep forever the friendship of the king and queen. Conclusion of the story of Scheherazade. And so, Scheherazade continued to tell her stories for 1,001 nights. The Sultan of the Indies could not help but love her. He gave up his promise to kill a woman every day, and they lived happily ever after.